Hello friends, I am Rahat Hassan, Assistant Professor in the Department of Political Science, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. So before going to start this particular lecture, once again I welcome all of you in this particular online course on international relations in a changing world. Friends, we discussed in the first lecture on global south and international relations, or global south and international politics or world politics. We discussed about the basic concept of global south and the importance of global south in the discussion of international relations. We also discussed, friend, that's why that concept of global south emerged in the discussion of or in the domain of world politics. We also discussed the various issues which are related to the concept of global south, and we also discussed the various theoretical explanation regarding the issue of global south in world politics. So friends, in the second lecture we will discuss about the another important things that are related to the concept of global south, and because of that reason, the reason of the emergence of the global south in international relations or world politics, another issues which are very much related or impacting the nature of basic nature of the international relations, that we call as the global international relations. So friends, in that sense, this particular lecture we will discuss on the contemporary world order, not much in detail. We will take certain things to discuss, just to know or just to explain the concept of global international relations, why we use the term or why there is a global international relations. So friends, basically the basic things that we discuss in the concept of global south, why that global south emerged, what are the basic things that we discuss in the domain of global south or the issue of global south, and what is the basic importance of the issue of global south in the discourse or in the discipline of international relations or world politics. So in that sense, we see the basic objective or basic purpose of the issue of global south in international relations is that the nation of the global south trying to make more a kind of global international relations by making global international relations more democratic in nature, more transparent in nature, and the participation of the nations more in terms of equal participation. So these are the basic objective, and in the engagement of the state in the international system, in that there must be a kind of mutual benefits, and that benefit must goes to the developed nations as well as the developing nations, that is the nation of the global south as well. So there must not be any sort of dominancy, there must not be any sort of hegemony by any particular nations or the group of the nations. That is what the global the dominancy or the hegemony of the nation of the global north in the dynamics of international relations. So these were the basic objective of the concept or the issue of global south in the domain of international politics or in the discipline of world politics. So these were the basic objective that we discussed in the first lecture of this first lecture over the topic of global south. The outcome of this, the conception of the third world nations, or we can say more appropriate, that is the word, that is the concept of global south in international relation. So the basic objective of the issue or the issue of global south in world politics or in international relation is to make the global south more inclusive and more global in nature. So because of that reason, we use the term global international relations, or towards making global international relations. So friends, in that regard, there are various writings that develop the concept of global international relations. So in that sense, the writings of Barry Boza, the writings of Amitav Acharya, and there are many other writers also, they talks about the concept of global international relations. So why we use, and why the global international relations, what is global international relations, and what is the contemporary world order that forced to use the term global international relations. So these are the things, friends, we will discuss in this particular lecture, and that is the extension of the lecture over the concept of global south. So friends, that the contemporary world order, so this contemporary world, the issue of the contemporary world order or the explanation of the issue of contemporary world order emerged after the end of the Cold War international system. Friends, as we know that during the Cold War international system, there was a kind of bipolar world system, and the whole world was divided into two blocks. One was USA and USSR, former USSR. So there was a kind of ideological conflict, as we know about that. And after the end of the Cold War period, because of the disintegration of the former USSR, the sole remaining power was the United States of America. So before that, or up to the first decade of 21st century, we, or the internet theorists of international relations, there was a common agreement that the whole international system is actually based on the hegemony of the United States of America, or the domination of the United States of America. So in that sense, friends, that there was a counter argument after the first decades of the 21st century, because of the many factors that emerge in the discourse of international relations, that forced the theories of international relations to rethink about the issue of world order or the global order in the discipline of international relations. So in that regards, friends, we can say that we can make out the point of rise of China, rise of India, and the various other nations as well. For example, rise of Japan and rise of Korea, and the various rise of the various other international organizations as well. And also we can make out another important things that emerge in the discourse of international relations after the end of the Cold War, that is the emergence of the various non-state actors in the discourse of international relations. So friends, in that regard, we can say that the basic nature of the international system or the world order got changed. So the hegemony of United States of America, the liberal order propagated by the United States of America, now challenged by the emergence or the various factors that emerge in the discourse of international relations just after the end of the Cold War, or in the first decades, after the first decades of the 21st century. So in that regards, friends, we can say that because of these factors, now there is a question on the hegemony or the supremacy of the United States of America in the discipline of international relations. So because of that, there are theoretical explanations. There is a debate in the discipline of international relations. So there is a argument, counter argument. There is no any sort of common argument regarding the definition or the basic nature of world order. But one of the important argument, which is more sound in nature, having more common likely to be common agreement, that the international system is not, or the world system is not there is no any sort of hegemony of the United States of America. Rather, there is a sort of decline of the hegemony or the supremacy of the United States of America because of the rise of China and some other sort of factors in international relations. Now, friends, we can say that there is a argument given by Amit Acharya, Barry Boza, some other scholars in international relations. They are calling that the contemporary world order is more multiplex in nature, or the mosaic system, or the multiplex system, which means that there are various polars in the international system, there are various powers in the international system, and these powers is actually influencing the contemporary world order, and because of that we call this the multiplex world system. So friends, now the contemporary world order, we calling it, or one of the approach to define international relations or the contemporary world order is the multiplex system, multiplex world order. So in that sense, in the multiplex world order, there are various players, the various blocks or the various polars having the capacity to influence the dynamics of the international relation. Some are at the regional level and some are at the global level as well. So we are Amit Acharya and some other scholars, they are referring the contemporary world order are like a kind of multiplex world order. So in that sense, the multiplex order, why multiplex order? Because of the rise of the various countries of the global south, or we can say the rise of the global south, the issue of global south in international relations, and because of that emergence or development in international relations, we call the world system, the contemporary world order, a kind of multiplex world order. So friends, in that sense, that because that multiplex world order, which means that it is referring the two components. One is the influence, the traditional influence of the state of global north, that is the European nations and America. Traditionally, they actually dominated that basic nature or the functioning of the international relations. At the same time, the another components that emerge contemporarily or newly emerge in the discussion or the discourse of international relations is the rise of global south. So friends, in that sense, we the basic things is what, whether the global international relations dependent or the rather again control or controlled by the European nations or the global the nation of the global north, or the dynamics of international relations is also including the rise of the nations of the global south. So in that regards, friends, there is an argument from the perspective of global south that the traditionally the basic nature and the functioning of the international relations is basically controlled, dominated and hegemonized by the nation of the global north, that is the European nations and America. So these countries, that is the non-Western countries, they are having the argument that their influence or their point of view, their interest must be taken into considerations in the dynamics of or in the functioning of the international organization, as well as in the multilateral organizations and as a whole, that is in the domain of international relations. So friends, in that sense, there are similar words, that is the basic philosophy is what the making of international relations more global in nature. So once we say global IR, which means that we need to include the interest, aspirations as well as the engagement of the nation of the global south. So once we do there is a representation, there is a kind of more democratization, and also there is a more say or the equal say of the third world nations or the global south in the discipline or in the functioning of the international relations. Only then the international relations become more global in nature, more inclusive in nature. So that is the basic philosophy, the basic idea of the concept of global international relation. So friends, in that sense, we can having a one important concept, that is the non-Western sort of IR. So the non-Western concept of IR, which means that it is not a kind of rejection of the European centric sort of international relations, rather the global international relations is including the Western conception of international relations or the Western engagement of international relations along with the engagement of the global south, that is the non-Western engagement as well. So West plus non-Western international relations, which makes a concept of global international relations. So here friends, we need to know about the non-Western concept of IR. So in the non-Western concept of IR, because of the rise of China, Africa and the various other nations, for example Brazil, India. So because of their emergence, economic emergence as well as the political stability, and also that is the social coherency and the social stability, these countries trying to assert their position or their point of view in the international system. So that from that perspective we see a kind of non-Western engagement of engagement in the international relations. So there are various explanation or the aspects or the factors. From that perspective we see the concept of non-Western concept of international relation. So that non-Western concept of international relation is basically critiques of the Eurocentrism. So as we discussed that the Eurocentrism, traditionally the international relations, they argued that the argument given by the non-Western conception of international relations, they argued that international relations traditionally it was Eurocentric, which means that there is a dominancy of the European nations in that particular sense of international relations. So they are challenging that sort of Eurocentric or the Western conception of domination in international relations. Another important point of view that or the aspect related to the emergence or the understanding of non-Western conception of international relation is the diverse theoretical perspective, which means that for example the Chinese sort of international relations, India sort of international relations, and also the Middle East conception of international relations and the theoretical explanation of the philosophy to look at the state engagement in the international system and the cultural aspect of these nations. So that diverse theoretical perspective is also challenging the kind of Eurocentric domination of international relations. Another aspect to look at the non-Western concept of international relation is the colonial and post-colonial dynamics. So friends, as we know that these countries of the global south, they having the the common experience, of colonialism and exploitation done by the developed nations of the Europe, that is the industrialized nation of the European countries. So from that perspective, these nations, the nations of the first world countries, that is the European nations, they are trying to impose their political, economic, social values or the human rights values over that part of the nations, or nations that we call as the global south nation. So against that, there is a kind of awakeness that we call as the non-political way to look at the concept of the political, economic and social concept, and these countries also having the indigenous political system, economic system and their social values, religious values and the issue of human rights. So in that sense, we see a kind of rejection or rejections by the non-Western nations to the Western dominated European centric sort of values over that particular third world nation. In addition to that, friends, the another aspect to look at the issue of global international relation is the global south solidarity. So in that sense, for example, the cooperation between the South nation, for example, BRICS, for example, G77, G20, there are various multiple organizations where we see a kind of engagement, and also in the functioning of international organization, for example, United Nations also, we see a kind of solidarity of the nation coming from global south. So we see that sort of cooperations or engagement, collective engagement of the countries of the global south, that also makes a kind of, or the demands of the making the making the international relations more inclusive in nature, and that we call as the concept of global international relation. Another important way or the dynamics to look at the issue of global south, or the emergence of the issue of the global international relation, is the culture and civilizational dialogues. So in that regards, friends, we see there is a kind of various kind of culture, for example, European culture, for example, Islamic culture, Chinese culture, some other cultures also. Samuel Huntington pointed out the various cultures that operate in the many part of the world. So we see a kind of civilizational and cultural dialogues as well. So these countries of the global south, they also having their civilizational values, civilizational connect, and they use that civilizational connect or civilizational means in the engagement of these the state of global south in the international system. Another aspect of the post-colonial critics regarding the colonial dominancy or the European dominancy in international relations. So these are the various point of view. On the basis of that, we can say there is a kind of aspects to look at, or to make the international relations more inclusive and more global in nature. So friends, in the non-Western international relations, it is referring a kind of non-Western sort of engagement, non-Western sort of means to engage the states in the international system, and it is also to make the broader conception of international relation. So friends, from that angle, we can see a kind of non-Western conception of international relation. So friends, the global international relations, it referring not the rejection of the Western concept or Western led sort of international relations, rather it is the global international relations is more inclusive and more democratic in nature by give the space to the Western sort of engagement or the Western models of international relations, along with the non-Western sort of engagement or the models of the engagement of the state in international relations. So the global IR is a kind of is equal to Western plus non-Western concept of international relations. So the main line, the key things that we need to understand is that the non-Western concept of international relations or the global IR basically is not rejecting the Western dominancy, rather it also including the non-Western conception of international relations in the domain of international relations. So it is more broader in nature. So from that way, friends, we can make out certain points or the characteristics that define the international relations or global international relations. First is what? The global IR is more inclusive. So Western and non-Western both make a kind of global nature of international relations. The global IR does not merely supplant Western theories, rather it subsume them also. The third explanation or the third characteristic of global international relation is global IR emphasizes the importance of regionalism and the contribution of the area studies. So as a friends we know, we discussed that earlier it is was Eurocentric in nature. The global IR is also including the area studies of the various other part of the regions as well. Not only necessarily limited to the European nations, rather the non-Western area or the non-Western regions also included in the discussion and discourse of international relations. So that makes more broader in nature. So regional organization, regional area studies or area studies that also become part of the discipline of international relations. So it make more global, more inclusive in nature. Fourth characteristics of global IR is the global IR calls for a new understanding of universalism and universality. So the international relations, it is global. It was state engagement. It was about the state engagement in the international system, that is the nation state system, but it was more Eurocentric in nature. Only the dynamics, the political, economic, security dynamics of the European countries were actually the main subject matter of the international relations. But because of the rise of the concept of global south, now we also see global international relations more universal in nature, more global in nature, by the inclusion of the social political dynamics, their cooperations, south-south issues, their sort of regional organization. So that makes what? That makes more inclusive multilateral nature of international relations. Another important characteristic is the global IR cannot be based solely or mainly on cultural exceptionalism and parochialism. As I say, that the international relations traditionally was dominated by a particular culture, particular morality, the particular values that was expressed by the European countries. But because of the rise of the issue of global south, there are inclusion of the various other cultures and the various other values as well. For example, the values of human rights, for example, the values of political values, economic system values as well. So that rise of China and other third world developing nations or the global south nations, so their culture, their values are also included in the domain of international relations. So that makes what? That makes more inclusive in nature. So friends, finally, the global IR takes a broad conception of agencies in global order building. International relations, friends, as we know that the international relations up to the end of the Cold War period, that the state was the main actors, the non-state actors was not given much space in the dynamics of international relations. But after the end of the Cold War and the factors, because of the factors of globalization, non-state actors, non-state agencies also given importance in the dynamics or in the functioning of international relations. So it makes what? It also help in making the international relations more global and more universal in nature, that we call as the pluralistic universalism. Also we can refer to just to understand that particular thing. So friends, in that sense we see the idea of global IR gives a kind of central role to the voices and agencies of South, including that the inclusion of the agencies and the various voices of the global South. So from that perspective we see a kind of inclusion of the global South and also the global North, which makes the concept of international relations more global in nature, more inclusive in nature and more democratic in nature. So friends, in this particular lecture we discuss about the concept of global South, rise of global South, the importance of global South in international relations, and we also discuss the world order, the contemporary world order in international system or in the discipline of international relations, and that how that conception or the rise of the global South and the rise of the various countries of the global South, that makes the basic nature of international relations or the subject of international relations more inclusive in nature, more global in nature, and that makes the nature of the international relations or the subject matter of international relations more global in nature. And because of that reason we use the term the international relations as the global international relation, which is more inclusive in nature and more democratic in nature. Thank you very much, friends. We discuss about in this two particular lecture about the global South and also the concept of global international relations. Thank you once again.